Hello, everybody. How we doing? And welcome to the We Global Football Show with myself, Mark, Imran, and Kyle. We hope that you've been enjoying the last couple of weeks of the English Premier League, and that's exactly what we are here to talk about this week. How we doing, guys? You doing all right?
Yeah, I'm doing great, thank you. How are you?
Yeah. I'm all right, man. You see, I'm in my green today, No complaints there at all, eh?
Yeah, I mean, after the start you've had, there should be no complaints at all.
I'm just gonna sit here and listen very carefully this evening to see what you two have got to say. How you doing, Kyle? You're bright yellow.
Yeah, I mean, obviously not as happy and chipper as you, but trying to survive.
Well, these things go in seasons. I took quite a lot of battering last season from the two of you, as you would no doubt recall, and swings and roundabouts, as they like to say in football. Swings and roundabouts. So listen, if you're joining us on the V Global platforms or on our Facebook group, welcome. Feel free to chime away and chip into the conversation as we go through this evening. And there's a lot to talk about, guys. There's a lot to talk about. I think we headlined the show this week with what's wrong with Son. Arsenal fan, but I do like my boy Sonny, as you two like to remind me. And Chelsea's early troubles. I'm sure Kyle will have a lot to say about Tuchel's early start to the season. Very inconsistent, I think. Very inconsistent.
Yeah.
And of course, Parker, no longer with us. First to cross the line in this sack race, sadly. But that's where we are this evening. So welcome and thank you so much for joining us. So let's get on with the show, man. Let's go. Just looking back on the summary of game week 5. Any thoughts on this one then?
I mean, straight away we were shocked on the Tuesday with Southampton managing to beat Chelsea, and I think if you watch the Southampton v Man United game, the writing was on the wall because I think they did perform pretty admirably, but they just couldn't get that goal, and ultimately United came out on top. But I think with how Chelsea have been performing, this Southampton win was on the cards, and they kind of shell-shocked Chelsea.
Yeah, I thought Southampton looked really, really good. And to be honest, I enjoyed watching that game with Kyle. It was fantastic. It was really good.
I think everything Imran has said there has pretty much summed it up. Like, watching that United-Southampton game, they were very, very unfortunate not to get anything from the game. And in all fairness, the goal that did beat Southampton, that 1-0 against United, was a very good finish by Bruno Fernandes. So if you're going to lose, I would rather lose to a goal like that. And I don't think they deserve to lose. Defensively, in both the United game and the Chelsea game, they were fantastic. And they showed it, honestly. Like, granted, we weren't terrible, but Southampton did deserve the win.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think, the game week culminated last night with what I would probably label as one of the worst games of football that I have seen in a long time. And I've watched a lot. But that match last night between Leicester and Man United, man, oh my word.
I mean, I wouldn't blame United too much because they didn't have to leave second gear at all because Leicester were just shambolic. To me, if you just look at the goal that Man United scored, it seems like the Leicester players have given up on them, and I feel that's I think the writing's on the wall for Rodgers, and I think very soon his time will be up.
This fella here that's just said hi, guys. He is a long-standing Man United fan. Now he would be delighted with the 1-0 last night, but I tell you what, they look average, man. They look average. But anyhow, we can talk about them a little bit more, a little bit more in the show. But it was a good game week. I thought it was a really good game week. The league is somehow seems really exciting at this stage of the season.
Yeah.
And unusually so. The first 6 games you usually think, just wait and get into the run of things, but things seem fairly exciting. Yeah. See, this is the kind of comment that we would expect from the Man United fans at this stage, right? Early, and all of that. But I'm not going to complain because he's absolutely right. So, if you're watching this show for the first time, we like to mix a lot of reality with our own fantasy league, and our fantasy league is an important part of the conversation here on this show. So we've got a new leader this week, guys. A former champion, I have to say. I don't know if he's watching this evening, but Adam Bonham has gone to the top of the pile. What do you make of him?
I mean,
Well, I know how you
go.
like to say a lot. He's usually languishing around with you down in 14th place, but he
Wow.
started this season very,
Languishing
very
around with who? With who? Me.
strong.
Wow.
So it's you every week saying, "Oh yeah, I'm languishing with the champion Adam Bonham," who, by the way, let's not forget, is a champion, and he's definitely proving it with his start this week. Like, I know Argentina was finally dethroned in I think game week 3 or 4, which was still a strong start. He's still there in 5th place, but Adam is clearly shown he's still got a 10-point gap, even though everybody seemed to climb last week.
Yeah, and I think he's decided, look, I'm going to take this serious. And to be honest, everybody seemed to be so serious about this league so early this season. It's like, if you get 50 points, you're disappointed.
I can't believe the strat. I think I say this every week, but it does blow my mind every week how strong the league is. With all 36 are really putting in a fight.
Well, I'm delighted that I don't have to look at Chesterfield. He's saying I went to 4th and now I'm 29th. It's true. But I am delighted that when I look at this now, I'm looking at the left hand side, Imran. Whilst
there's no need for this.
But I'm just saying I'm on the left hand side now, whereas you seem to be taking up permanent residence.
Yep. I think it's gone a bit more than a bad start. It's really looking like it's not going to be my year this year, but I'm still holding out hope that I can make a charge sooner rather than later. But yeah, it's pretty depressing to be on this side. I don't think I was on this side at all last year, and now every single show so far I've been here at the bottom.
I think you can cling on to that comment that Chesterfield made earlier. It's early days yet. It's early days yet. I got to give a shout out to Christian Corbin actually, because I think he's topped off the league this week with 99 points. Fair play to him. Yeah. That does take some going, and I think he was up into 2nd at one point, but he's making a charge. So good movement there from Christian, and I see we had one new joiner over the week as well, Lunga, who's sitting there on 66 points, but he came late to the league. But it's a big league this season. But I think the guys are really, really focusing on winning this trophy. So let's talk about Adam then. What have you noticed with his team with the 86 points that he's gathered this week?
I mean, normally you would point to the fact that he's captain Haaland and Haaland got a hat-trick, but I'm pretty sure 90% of the league did. Not including me, unfortunately.
Well, you kind of missed a trick with that one there, didn't you?
Yeah. So, actually, the Haaland score isn't worth pointing up because it will just keep him level. It's the rest of his frontline scoring with Jesus and Mitrovic, and then you've got a really strong midfield as well. I think Rashford managed to get 6 points as well with the assist against Leicester last night. So I think just across the board, really high scoring, and yeah, he's got his captaincy right.
Well, that front three seemed to be so popular. I mean, it is my front three, but I don't know if he was looking at my team and decided to, have a little bit of a punt. But that front three, Jesus, Haaland, and Mitrovic, seemed to be the one that people are settling for in the early runnings of the season. Any observations, Kyle?
Wow, you got to single me out with my lack of that front three.
I'm just asking a question, man. Asking a question.
Imran has raised a good point in the fact that, yes, Haaland is ever so popular. I mean, one thought that I was having that I came across in game week 5, it was the first time in, recent memory that I'd ever been top of FPL.
Oh, yes, congratulations. Yes, you did top up. You did top up. Yes, I did. Yes, of course.
And one observation I had is I am one of those very, very, very few people in the world who doesn't have Gabriel Jesus. And the reason I was top is because...
Don't envy us, man. Don't envy us.
Whoa. Let me finish. The reason I was top is because of that Arsenal triangle you seem to point out every time I seem to be slandering Arsenal, of Odegaard, Martinelli and Gabriel. And they, in my personal opinion, have been much more consistent than Jesus this season. And so obviously in FPL, you're only allowed 3 people per team. And so my big risk was, do I get rid of these 3 consistent players, or 2 of the consistent players, to afford an 8.3 million Gabriel Jesus? Or do I take the risk of 84% of the entire planet having Gabriel Jesus and him scoring? And it comes back to bite you every time it happens, because like this weekend, he got that goal, Odegaard got injured. Yes, Martinelli scored, so I was quite thankful, but it's that risk you got to take.
Well, look, Chesterfield is suggesting some tips there for you because he can't possibly be talking to me. So I think he's suggesting some tips there for you, Kyle, for the next game week. And I think Chris Carr is also suggested 3 goals and 2 assists might be, a little bit of a clue. But I think Adam has done well, and it's great to see that he's bouncing back and looking to become a double winner. He's won it once, and I'm sure that he's eager to try and make his mark. But yet again, this is now 5 weeks. Between the 3 of us, I think it might have been 45 that I am leading the charge here. So, top between the 3 of us, 79 points this week, still sitting in 17th, but on the left-hand side of the table, importantly, when you look at the full table, Imran. And my front 3 are similar to Adam's, and I think he's probably looked at my team. But I have to confess, I will make an early confession. I played my wild card early. I played my wild card. And the reason I played my wild card is purely because I get the feeling that this league is just too competitive this year, and if you lie and try and mess around and be indecisive, you're going to get stuck, and by the time you realize it, you're 100 points behind and you can't recover. So I thought, you know what? I play my wild card. I bought in your boy. Look, I even bought in your boy Salah, but he let me down, man. Let me down badly. I bought. Give me 2 assists, but I expected a lot more than that, man. Come on. So, and I bought him in. I bought in Saint Maximum, who's he's out hurt, which is really unfortunate. I did get a point from Rodrigo, but this was about solidifying my position now and trying really to because I'm not that far behind. 50 points to the top of the league is nothing in this league, man. But I think once you start to get to 100, it's hard to recover. And of course, I'm back in Edison, as I said at the beginning of the season. I think he is the guy who is really looking to hold on to the Golden Glove. So, there you go. You got a comment there about Arthur and coffee. There you go. So that's me, and I think I'm looking to stay competitive over the course of the coming week, guys. So anything that you want to say, not that you all can say anything because I've beaten you for 4 weeks straight now. So there you go.
I'm still above you on the table, though.
That is right.
Well, a couple of points, but Anyway, you made a rally back, Imran.
Yeah, finally a decently scoring week for myself, above the average. I think I had an awful last week, or the weekend games, game week 4. I think I scored well below the average on 49 points, and that was due to not having Haaland in. Finally brought Haaland in and didn't decide to captain him, which was a big mistake on my behalf.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. I think the fact that I didn't captain Haaland and still managed to get above the average means that my squad on the whole is actually pretty strong. So I'm pretty happy with that. But the scores I could have got if I captained Haaland would have been up there at the top, like with the top of the league. I think I would have topped the show. I think I would have beaten your score if I captained Haaland. But yeah, if but some maybes. I think the squad is looking a bit more fruitful in terms of returns, and hopefully it continues.
I think your problem is that you have too much commitment to these Liverpool players, man. Alisson, Gomez, Salah, those guys aren't giving any return this season, man.
I would agree. Come on, man. The double Liverpool defenders have been a mistake, and I think you'll see in my transfers for next week I've rectified that.
I have to say, I am very surprised that Van Dijk doesn't feature in your team. That is just
he took him out. That's what I was shocked.
Yeah, he did, but he was taking up a bit too much money. So I think as long as Bournemouth is starting, I can get a cheaper Liverpool defender that always starts. So yeah, but he still didn't get me a clean sheet anyway.
You took him out pre-Bournemouth game and he scored, didn't he?
We don't talk about that, Kyle.
And Ivan Toney up front. This is quite a gamble, I think.
I think that's why I took Van Dijk out to free up the money for Toney. And he did score in his first week in the team, but yeah, since then no returns. But I do back Toney to bag at least 10 goals this season.
Wow. Okay, fair enough. But you ran a good second between the 3 of us, and of course, Kyle. I don't know what's happened. He couldn't even break 50 points.
Yeah, it was shocking for me, to be honest, this weekend. Like, the average was 62 points across the world, and like Imran touched on earlier, the most captain player this weekend was Haaland, and I took a risk in captaining De Bruyne, expecting him to bag a bunch of assists, and he didn't even make it off the bench. Well, he did make it off the bench, but the fact that he was benched and he played about 15 minutes, it wasn't fun watching him get a first half hat trick, Haaland. And then to top it off, James went and got injured. Odegaard went and got injured. The first week since I've started, like I've complained about every week since game week 1, Sanchez has outperformed Alisson every week.
Too much commitment, man.
No, but this week neither of them got a clean sheet. So neither of my keepers really, were all that this week. But I think this was the first week all season in which I've had more than 3 players blank in a week. But what's crazy is, like Imran mentioned earlier, because everybody captained Haaland, the captaincy of Haaland was a bit of a, okay, what about the rest of the team? Yeah. But I noticed that even if I did captain Haaland this weekend, I'd only be 5th in the league. And going into this week, I was joint top with Adam. So, like, the fact that I can be top by 15 points, captain Haaland, and then drop to 5th in this league.
What does that say about your squad, though?
Well, I think I know the trick he's trying to play. This trick he's trying to play is hoping that all of us will align ourselves to the likes of Haaland and Jesus and so forth, and he will come along and cream off. But De Bruyne let him down badly this week, man. Really bad.
Yeah.
Wow. And Edward, I'm going to ask you again because I asked you in the last show. Why is this guy in your team?
Well, it's funny that you said you've confronted Edward and not Mateta. Like, Mateta is the one that doesn't start. Edward's the one that tends to start. Granted, Palace don't score many goals, and when
they don't,
it usually comes from Eze or Zaha. But in all fairness, I have sold them this weekend. So
that experiment didn't take very long, did it? What, 2 weeks? Anyway, listen, I'm delighted, and this is the reason why we have introduced the Fantasy Analyzer, because we've got to keep track of how we are shifting across this league all during the season. So, look, game week 5, as I said, I topped up with 79, as you can see there, followed by Imran. And we're keeping watch. The goal that you can see there is Wayne Ski, our current champion. This guy is very consistent, man.
Yeah.
This guy is really incredible. He hasn't fallen up the top. You can see there with me, look, this is my season in start reality. I will flip from top to middle to bottom. That's just me in fantasy. It's just reality. But people like Wayne Ski, I don't know what these guys do, man. They're just, and fairness to you too, Kyle, you've been marching along across the top so far all season. I'll leave Imran to speak about what it feels like to be consistently in the bottom half of the table.
I mean, I've never been in this situation before. In my last 2 years of FPL, I've always been in the Kyle situation, but yeah, I need to get out of here as soon as possible.
Well, at least you're on the upward trajectory.
Yeah, it seems,
So we will wait and see what game week 6 throws up. But, overall, I think our fantasy league is turning into be an incredible league this season. I am fully expecting that it will be a record-breaking season because of the number of points that are being accumulated every week. So, for all you guys out there who are playing, excellent stuff, man. Keep being competitive, and we look to see you, being on the top of the league at some point in the future. I don't know if you guys want to say anything else about the Analyzer. Just to say that I am 79 points on game week 5.
I mean, I think this will really come into it when, like, a few game weeks in, when you can really see the ups and downs that everyone's had. For now, you can just see the starts. I mean, I think only you, Mark, has been the one that's really topsy-turvy in that.
Oh,
I still think it's insane how insanely consistent Wayne Ski is being.
Yeah,
like, just in general, that's
what he's going to he'll keep ticking along until the crunch time where he'll just shoot up like that.
Yeah, but he's in that top half. Look, there's a comment there, but we're going to come back to this because I think we're going to talk about this Haaland point later on in the show. But it's an interesting point. Thank you for making that one. Interesting point. So, okay, well, look. We weren't really planning to introduce the Sat race until after the, first 6 games, because that just seems like, you got to at least give the manager 6 games to get into the season.
Yeah.
But sadly, we've got a little mini Sat race here because Scott Parker's gone.
Yeah.
Which was quite a shocker. Thanks to you, Imran. And I think we have to say, well, you inflicted a lot of pain on Bournemouth on the back of you having some pain yourself from Man United, which was rather surprising.
Well, I'll go over it as quickly as possible. We were absolutely shocking v Manchester United, and we did deserve to lose that game. And I think it speaks to a lot of the injuries we've had as well. But yeah, we'll move on quickly. We did beat them. We did beat Bournemouth, 9-0, which is a good response. And then when I saw the news that Parker was sacked, at first I couldn't believe it. But then I think with the context of it, it makes a tiny bit more sense. And the fact that his after-game comments regarding the lack of spending and lack of backing.
But is he wrong though? I mean, what did he? Is it because it's him who's saying it?
I mean, I guess no owner wants to be put out in the public like that, but he is not wrong. I think, yeah, I do not blame him for speaking out in public about the lack of backing, because the Premier League is absolutely ruthless, and you will not get anywhere with that squad that he has right now.
I think we all identified Bournemouth as being in the bottom three in our initial predictions at the start of the season. So, I think a squad as thin as theirs compared to, their other counterpart who came up, Nottingham Forest, you can see the contrasting difference. And just a few things he should probably have waited until this week, maybe. Maybe. But I don't think you can blame him. I think Bournemouth do look really, really light. It's a very small team. It's a very small stadium. They don't generate a lot of revenue as a team. But I feel for Scott Parker, actually, because I think when you look at his win rate, they're 51%. Yes, he won a lot of games last season and they came up second behind Fulham. But at the same time, I think the Championship is quite a super competitive league to get out of. And to come out of the Championship, you've got to be pretty good. It's a hard league. I didn't think he deserved it, actually. I think it's a bit of a knee-jerk reaction. And
they also beat Villa on the opening day, which is an achievement in itself.
Well, considering how Villa are, it's not really an achievement, is it?
And I don't know if it will make a difference overall to how Bournemouth are positioned when we get to the middle and end of the league. I doubt. But I feel as though that's been a bit of a overreaction on the part of the club there.
I agree.
So let's talk about my boy then. Of course, I'm an Arsenal fan, but I like good football. And this guy is one of my favourite players, even though he plays on the other side of North London, sadly. I think this is probably his problem. But anyway, this smile is gone. What's wrong with Son this season? What do you think? He doesn't look right. The body language is all wrong. He's not smiling anymore. And the numbers that you look at there, you can see, man, something isn't quite right with Son in this season. What do you think is going on?
I have to be honest. I can't really speak much to Son in particular, but Spurs haven't come out all guns blazing, in my opinion. Like, the games I've seen them in against us, against West Ham, and against Forest, they haven't really impressed me. Granted, they've got points from every single one of those games, but their especially attacking threat isn't really all there. And the front three that we spoke a lot about in Kulusevski, Son, and Kane at the beginning of the season haven't really impressed me. Even though Kane, I think, is now on 3 goals already this season.
Yeah.
He's not really playing the way he was at the back end of last season. Like, Spurs aren't really impressing me as a team right now.
But to be 5 games in, I think, with Son, and he's played in all those games, 80 minutes every game, 1 shot per game, and 0 goals. It just looks as though, are we seeing the transition to how the manager wants them to play, or is it the arrival of Richarlison that is perhaps putting a little bit more pressure on his game, and why we're not really seeing him as the Son that we know he can be?
Richarlison also already has an assist, so let's not forget that, and that's off the bench as well.
Yeah, I was about to say, when Richarlison came on the other day for Spurs, he seemed like he changed the game, and it feels like Conte is looking towards that sub a lot more. Maybe Richarlison can force his way into the starting 11. And what you could say also is that before, when Kane and Son formed that formidable partnership, it's because in that Spurs team it was just Kane and Son. Now they have Kulusevski on that right side, who really is a serious player. He's only 22, I think, as well. 122, and he's getting goals and assists. And maybe you could say that it's taken a lot of the heat off of Son, and Kulusevski's taking the burden of the goals and assists, and maybe he's suffering from that. Yeah,
it just seems as though, even when you look at the average sofa score rating for him over the past 4 games, 6s and 7s, which is bang average for what we've come to expect from him as a player. Very, very technically gifted, always can find space, extremely quick. He will get goals. So to go 5 without any at the start of the season, which is a little bit unusual for me, but it's more the body language and the misery. I saw him come off in the last game, and he was, going back to the bench and very upset and that type of thing. So it does feel as though something is not quite right here, but we'll wait and see what the story is there. But He will come again. Of course, I had to move him on like game week 2 after realizing this guy is blanking and you can't really, I'm like you when it comes to certain players. He's one of my staples that I commit to in fantasy every year. I gotta have Son because he's going to give you goals. But 5 innings, we haven't seen anything. 1 assist and that's it.
Yeah.
So
I have to say, like one thing I was going to mention even before I looked at the heat map is that one aspect of Son's game that is definitely still there is that insane acceleration.
Oh yeah,
he accelerates like a different athlete. He does. But the one factor that you tend to see is that he's getting it in that first third and his own third. Like you can see at that heat map there, like just outside his own box or far out on that left hand side by the halfway line. And the second Spurs get the ball, he's off.
But those are serious, yeah.
Exactly. He's off from that halfway line when, as a winger, you want to be so much further up the pitch. And that's been the story of Spurs, to be honest. They've got very little of the ball. And when they do, they give it away a lot and they're not using it very, very well.
Yeah, so we got to keep an eye on him and see how this particular phase of his career progresses. It's not a crisis. He's only gone 5 games without scoring, but it's so unusual because of how he has been playing at Spurs. We might have to look at him in the January window. Arteta, if you're watching, he would make a tremendous addition to our team over at the Emirates. Absolutely 100%. We can make a champion out of him, and he might win something in the, anyway. I just had to get out there, man. Game of the week, then. We said we'd come back to this guy. Man City v Forest. I think you watched this one, Kyle. Or you were dipping in and out of this one?
Yeah, like thankfully a lot of the games were all on at the same time, so I think a lot of people were able to like multi-screen watching 2 games at once. But my focus was on this game, just to see Kevin De Bruyne, on that bench. It was a first half hat trick for Erling Haaland. And one interesting point that I heard, every City game I've watched so far this season, they've always made the same point, either at half-time or full-time, which is Erling Haaland has had X amount of touches, but he's still scored X amount of goals. How could this possibly be? But I don't watch as much football as a lot of others, and I'm not a big analyzer, but just looking at his play in the Bundesliga and the kind of striker he is, and watching Pep's City over the last couple of years, it makes a lot of sense that Erling Haaland doesn't have that many touches. Like, the kind of striker he is one of those really clinical, in the box, smash the ball in the back of the net striker. And even when he is making that run, he's still always going to be in that final third. And you look at City, who are one of the best passers, probably in Europe, to be honest. They're a very, very good possession football team. And you're going to combine those two things. You're not going to get many touches from Erling Haaland, but one thing you are going to get is goals, which was very apparent in this game.
Look, if he's just got 1 touch and it's going in the back of the net, I don't think any City fans will be complaining.
Like, I think in that first half, I think he had 8 touches, 6. What was it? 8 touches, 6 in the box, and 3 goals.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you can complain about that. No matter what angle you're coming at it from, he still got those 3 goals. Like, it's ridiculous. But not all of the focus can be on Haaland, because City as a team were fantastic in the game. It did finish 6-0, and Haaland only got those 3 goals, but City were a very, very good side.
So talk about this then, because they've got one main striker, and of course we saw earlier that potentially someone in the chat is saying that they're putting all of their eggs in one basket.
It is a valid point.
But if it's the Haaland basket, what's the problem?
Oh no, I mean the Haaland basket is a very good basket.
Exactly.
But I think you can't ignore that in his last year at Dortmund, especially, the injury problems were quite significant. I think he missed quite a few games, and you never know if that does happen. I actually haven't thought about that. What are they going to do with their strikers? But then again, who started it? Didn't Alvarez start? And
that's the point I was going to make. So Haaland actually hasn't played 90 minutes all season at all, and the player that's come on for him tends to be Alvarez. And this was the first time Alvarez started a game this season. He scored twice. Once with his weak foot, and the finish was insane.
They've got an Aguero regen just like that.
But why do we think, because Chesterfield is making the same point about if he gets injured, City will have problems. City didn't have any problems when they didn't have Haaland. I mean,
exactly.
They had Sterling and Jesus.
Well, that is a good point. That is true.
Yeah, but even
the goals have not stopped coming from across the team.
even then, you could just switch Alvarez into that position, and they're not because one thing people aren't realizing is that City haven't really changed their style of play to fit Haaland. Like, they're not doing what we thought United would do last season and changing their style of play to fit Ronaldo, which is kind of what United did. City are playing exactly the same way, and Haaland just happens to be in the team, standing in that 18-yard box, waiting for the ball to come in. And because he's so clinical, he just finishes time after time after time.
Look, we said right at the start of the season on this show, we expect this guy will score a bundle of goals because he's just special. He's just unique. Yeah. And I think his record is there for everybody to see. Wherever he's gone, he's done it. And 9 and 5 is kind of keeping track with his consistency. Whether he gets injured, well, who knows? That will probably come. This is the Premier League, and as games mount up and you play more games and the Champions League starts, injuries generally tend to set in. So I think you can probably expect that. But the truth is, I think City will still have more than enough, even if he misses a few games. Now, if he gets a bad injury, that kind of derails the pet project completely for this season. So we hope that wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
But we can't only talk about City in this game because we've got to talk about Nottingham Forest, and of course their 24 players that they're signed, and we'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. But what did you make of Forest in this game?
Well, I don't think they were particularly bad, and one thing I do commend them for, similar to a lot of comments on Bournemouth in the 9-0 against Liverpool, is that what a lot of teams do is sit back and almost invite Liverpool and City to attack them, and they defend. But Forest didn't do that. And they actually had a go at City. And there were a few moments in the game where they did look like scoring, but unfortunately just couldn't put their chances away. And that's another thing about Haaland. Because Haaland is so clinical, once you get forward, it's almost an absolute certainty that you're going to put the ball in the back of the net. And so I don't think Forest were particularly awful in this game, but they were just outclassed on the day by the quality that City had.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, Haaland will score a lot of goals. The point about injury is a valid one, but I think because of the quality that City have got in their overall squad, I think that they might be able to ride that challenge. So we'll see. And, it's already looking as though money well spent. 9 and 5.
The other point with Forest as well, I think we might have touched on this at the beginning of the season with Salah and Nunez, is that I think what Forest tried to do, which kind of caught them out a lot of the times, is they were caught in the crossroads between, if we man-mark Haaland, we're going to leave so much space for the likes of the Fodens and the Mahrezes, and you don't want to do that. Because if you leave space for the Mahrezes and the Fodens, the ball's just going to come into the box, and because of the height and strength that Haaland has, I think his second goal, he was literally being man-marked by 2 players and still won the ball. Wow. Like, it's just ridiculous, the amount of strength, and his positioning is ridiculous, but it's a quality to his game that he has. And so it's the decision you got to make defensively, is if you do focus solely on him, you're leaving space for the quality that's the rest of the attack,
and you still will get hurt.
You know what I mean? So like
so look, with the transfer window closing and teams are settling now, we thought that this particular graphic was a really interesting one to talk about, particularly when it relates to Nottingham Forest, because a lot of people have been talking about the number of players that Forest signed. I think we counted 24.
Yeah.
But what this graphic is really showing us is actually how many players have these clubs been able to retain during the transfer window. And those who contributed well last season and have gone, what does that actually mean? I mean, in the case of Forest, this is astonishing. They've only been able to retain 46.7% of the squad. So it's no surprise that they've had to go and sign so many players.
I mean, yeah, that's one thing that they were worried about, and even at the playoff finals, to be fair, because you tend to see, like, obviously in a lot of finals, you get a lot of emotional farewells from players, and naturally, because Forest haven't been in the Prem for so long, that was definitely the case at the playoffs. But they were very, very worried about the amount of players that will leave. They knew that a lot of their players were loanees and players on their final year of their contract. And obviously, because they're going to the Prem, you're going to have people who are just going to snatch their players anyway. And so they ended up losing 28 players in the summer between them winning that playoff final and the start of the league. And so that's a massive deficit. And you tend to see in the most football clubs that you wouldn't tend to see a club backed to that degree to sign enough players to survive after losing 28 players. But surprisingly, I'm shocked. I don't know about the rest of the football world, but I'm very surprised to see that Forest have been back to the degree that they have in the signing of the 23 players. And the other thing is that I can't really name any of those 23 signings as particularly bad signings. Like, it feels like they've all been well thought out. And
well, you can't name them as bad signings now because it all depends on what the results look like come the end of the season.
That is true.
If they don't make it, they might all turn out to be rubbish signings.
Because like you tend to see, especially like big clubs, you sign players who are almost names instead of positions. But what Forest have done quite well is they've signed the players that they need, and then the players that they need in that backup. So I remember watching that Spurs Forest on the weekend just gone, and they were saying that the commentators were predicting that if Forest do make any more signings, the only other players they'll sign are a striker and a right back.
Yeah.
A striker because they need a backup striker, and a right back because they need a right back backup for Williams.
Yeah.
And the day after, lo and behold, they signed another striker. And they're really clever signings. Like, they're not nonsense, and they're very well thought out.
I think you can make, the converse argument against Imran's team, who sit pretty in this graphic with, they've retained 91.4% of their squad. You can probably argue, but have they stayed static, Liverpool?
I would.
Because they've got a big chunk in there that they've lost, and we know that that's Sadio Mane. But actually, has this squad been refreshed enough for this season?
And I would think that's exactly what our problem has been, why we've had a slow start, because if you look at the age profile, particularly of our midfield, the age profile is 19-year-old teenagers, or Curtis Jones, who's 21 in experience, and the jump is then to 30-year-old Henderson, 29-year-old Fabinho. We don't have a middle ground of midfielders in their prime who are consistent, and Thiago, of course, who's 31 as well. And I think that's really hurt us because the reliability of those players is going down as they age, and that's evident as Thiago's been injured pretty much all season. Henderson's just picked up an injury which seems pretty serious, and that's forced us to dip into the market yesterday and get a panic buy of a centre mid. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. And I do agree that we should have freshened up a bit more. And if you look across the top three of that graphic, the three teams that have retained the most players, Liverpool, West Ham, Aston Villa, have had shocking starts by their standards.
Yep, absolutely. And I think the other one that you got to watch quite closely here is, Leicester have retained 84% of their squad during this window. The big piece that's in there is Fofana, who's gone. Yep. But I tell you what, watching them last night, man, oh my word. I just cannot see how they're going to mount any challenge this season. They just look so still as a squad. They look so lack of ideas.
And we were talking about how Scott Parker threw the owners under the bus live on TV. I think Rodgers did something.
He did. He did.
So you cannot see that ending in a positive way. I think the relationship's gone completely sour between Rodgers, the players, and the owners.
Yeah, I'm just going to put that comment there because I don't know if you might want to say anything about it as a Liverpool fan.
Of course, losing Mane was a big blow. What a player, what a legend for the club. But I think, obviously, at the end of the day, we can't keep 3 30-year-old players until they're 35. It had 10 eventually, and I think we've replaced that decently with Diaz and Nunes once they get going. I think the midfield's really let us down this season.
I think my opinion on that is that we seem to bring this every single show about Sadio Mane. But I think if you look at last season, this season, and next season, I think this season was the one season you wanted to let one of that front three go.
Yeah, 100%, I agree.
Because this season is the season to adapt that front three, because you don't want to leave it late.
But have they let the right one of that front three go though?
Well, Firmino was obviously the worst of the three. It was between Salah and Mane, and I think, based on the numbers last year, you get rid of the one that performed less, and I think that was Mane. And I think since he got COVID in 2020-2021 season, he hasn't been the same, like in terms of electrifying pace, but he'll do well in the Bundesliga, and I'm really happy for him. I think club legend.
Man, I think that they're going to rule the sale of Sadio Mane. But hey, we will see. That's Liverpool's problem to worry about, I'm sure. Yeah. So the window slammed shut yesterday, as they like to say. And a couple of big names have arrived. I don't know how big these names are, to be honest. We've got Aubameyang on here. I don't know how we get on here. We set a 40 million threshold here with the big transfers, but he snuck in. And I think he snuck in for a good, valid reason, actually, because I think Aubameyang is a well-respected striker. He knows the Premier League well. I can't wait to see him back at the Emirates. Get in. That's going to be a very interesting reception, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure. Nobody seems to thrive in that position at Chelsea in recent times. I'm not sure.
The number 9 shirt as well.
Have they?
I'm of the minority that actually doesn't mind this signing too much. I think for last minute deals in the market, getting a striker for 10 mil who's actually gone away to Barcelona and like rediscovered a lot of his form. I think he seems a lot sharper than he was towards the end of his Arsenal stint and has a track record of performing in the Premier League, obviously before things got sour. I don't think it's an awful signing.
I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it's an awful signing. I'm just saying I'm not sure.
Fair enough. And I think he can surprise a few people and bag a few goals. I'd set him a target of double figures, and I think he could reach that.
Is he going to feature in your fantasy league?
Honestly, I think
if he wasn't
9 million, then I would have taken the punt, honestly. But I think 9 million is a bit too much. If he starts bagging in the goals and he's their penalty taker, for example, then yeah, maybe I'll get him back in.
Fair enough. Well, look, Casemiro arrived for 60 million, and I know United fans like Chesterfield in the chat will be getting excitable about this, but I often have to remind United fans of Angel Di Maria, Romelu Lukaku, Paul Pogba, the list of big names and big money signings who've all flopped, and let's wait and see where this one goes, because I don't really get too excitable when United spend money.
I mean, yeah, I think even if he ultimately it is still poor business when you think of the fact that he's 29, 30, maybe older, 29 I'll say. And 60 million is a lot on a 5-year contract on big wages. So
yeah,
they'll be paying those wages when he's 33 years old, and who knows where his legs are at that point. So, but I think in the short term, you can't deny that he is a top centre defensive midfielder, and it's exactly what they needed. They really lacked a defensive midfielder, fresh off winning the Champions League, as I know, unfortunately. And I think with the experience he has, but then again, we said the same about Varane, and he didn't have a great first season, did he? So it remains to be seen.
And stay with United. Have you done any research on Anthony?
Yes, and well, it's going to seem like my bias is coming through, but again, I think 80 million is just a bit too much. I think they could have instead of 80 million bought two players, solid players that get into their starting 11. Whereas Anthony for 80 million, I think he didn't even post insane numbers in the Dutch league, and they expect him to try and carry that attack that's misfiring quite a bit.
Does he play for this national team?
On and off. I think it is hard to get into that Brazil team, obviously, but yeah, on and off.
So is this comment more appropriate then? Because is it more about the team? Because I mean, at Old Trafford at the moment, they seem to be going through a little bit of a transition. Obviously, Ronaldo arrived as the big name signing last summer as the marquee. Didn't quite work out. Mm-hmm. So now they're having to refocus the strategy there around the team effort. They've gotten rid of Pogba and hopefully that will help things to settle down. But it does feel as though a lot of investment. I mean, we looked at it in our last show, the players that have been signed at United in the last decade. And to be honest, there have been a lot of flops. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see how Ten Hag's time at United, particularly this season, because United fans are not going to tolerate. And if I remember the days when they used to laugh and say we went 10 years without winning the Premier League and all that nonsense. But it's starting to motor on now in terms of their trophy-less time, particularly with the Premier League. So we'll see. And Ishak and Fofana then, Kyle.
Yeah, I'll just touch on that United one last time. I do have to say, in the Southampton game that I watched and in the game that I watched against Leicester last night, the Varane-Martinez partnership seems to be quite good, and I'm actually looking forward to seeing.
Now, come on, man! They were up against a toothless Jamie.
I'm not going to deny.
He hasn't even got a goal all season.
Every time they are threatened, they do seem to. I don't know why. I don't know why their two styles complement each other so well, but they really, really do. So it'll be interesting.
Listen, we'll see what happens at Old Trafford on Sunday. We'll see what happens, man.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, 75 million Wesley Fofana. I wasn't sure about that price at all. It really seems like this transfer window. We know Chelsea actually broke their transfer record in the most money they've spent in any transfer window ever in this window. I think it was 325 mil. I think.
Wow, that is crazy.
But I'm not sure which players I can justify that price tag on. Honestly. Cucurella started well. He's fit into the team like that. I remember making a comment the other day when we played over the weekend. I can't remember who we played off the top of my head. I was saying that if you switched the stories on Havertz and Cucurella, saying that Cucurella has been here for almost 3 seasons and Havertz has just come into the side, I'd believe you. Like Cucurella slotted into the side so well, whereas both Havertz and Mount seem to be struggling for form at the beginning of the season, and it's not comfortable to watch. Especially as Mount is one of my favorite players, so seeing him, struggle, constantly shouting at the TV, it's not fun. But so 75 mil for Fofana doesn't fill me with much confidence. Like I'm not saying he's not a bad player, but 75 mil is a lot of money. So
it is.
He really does have to justify that price tag.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens at Chelsea. And Ishak started with a goal for Newcastle.
Yeah, I mean,
looks a decent player.
He's been on the market and under the attention of a lot of top clubs, and obviously we know a lot of top clubs have gone for strikers, and I think he was the one that just missed out, and he's shown at Real Sociedad that he can be a real player, and I think in his debut he just shows what he's all about. His ball striking, he scored a really, really good second goal, but it was just offside. So I think what he's shown in that debut at Anfield to do it against the likes of Van Dijk and Gomez.
I know you're not going to admit it, but they got robbed at Anfield, man. I know you wouldn't admit it, but
no chance.
The referee gave that game to Liverpool, but anyhow.
They got what they deserve for time wasted.
Of course. I'm expecting you to say that. Look, team of the week is yours, man. Take it away.
Yes, I think what a game week it was, and I think what I've tried to do in this team of the week is I included the results of the weekend in my thoughts when building this team, and I think if we start in goal with Jose Sa, he kept a clean sheet. And interestingly, 95% pass accuracy, which is a thing to look at keepers nowadays. He kept a clean sheet v Bournemouth, 95% pass accuracy, and then also v Newcastle, 5 saves, albeit he conceded, but 5 saves and 3 of them were inside the box. And I remember Saint-Maximin being through late on, and he saved it really strongly. So yeah, he earns his place in the team there. Dalot at right back, he clean sheet and a solid performance v Leicester, albeit Leicester's toothless attack, you're right. But also a clean sheet on the weekend, as well as the game-winning assist for Southampton. So I think he's earned his place there, and I think he's completely benched Wan-Bissaka now. So his start for the season's completed. Looking into the centre-backs, I think Bella Kotcher, we actually haven't spoken about him. He's one of the underrated signings that Southampton have made that have made them a really big force this season. I think he was good in the game for United despite losing, and then on Chelsea, he was absolutely monstrous. I think 8 clearances and a last-ditch tackle, which was timed to perfection. I can't remember, was it on Havertz or?
I think so. It's either Havertz or Mount again.
Yeah, and then he was just brilliant. Lloyd Kelly actually, Bournemouth's best defender in a clean sheet, and I think to go from conceding 9 to then keeping a clean sheet takes some doing, and I think Lloyd Kelly was the reason for that. He didn't play in the 9-0, but then he came back into the team and brought some assurity to the Bournemouth defence, the managerless Bournemouth as well. So I think that was a pretty good performance from him. Cancelo, I think there's not much to say other than he was dominant in both of his games. I think he got a goal against Forest, and a very good goal, and he's just pure class, isn't he? Souček, I think he took his goal brilliantly v Spurs. It was a really good volley, and he was part of the reason why they managed to keep it tight in midfield. I think he won all of his duels and was a really good CDM performance. Looking at Elliott and Gundogan, I think I want to talk about Harvey Elliott. We should do a feature on him in the next few shows, because this kid is special, honestly. He cemented himself at right centre mid in this Liverpool team at 19 years old. I think he got a goal v Bournemouth, and he was the only player that could hold his head high at half-time v Newcastle. So fair enough.
Just putting that there for you, just so that as you carry on.
Okay. Gundogan on the left side of the midfield, I think what a player Ilkay Gundogan is, by the way. I think honestly, out of all the players in the Premier League, I think Gundogan will be the best manager in the future. In the next 10 years, I think he's played under Klopp, he's played under Pep, and he's just he's just such an intelligent footballer. I think
Yeah.
I saw v Forest. He made 106 passes with 96% accuracy.
Oh my life.
Which is just
Wow.
mental.
Wow.
With like 4 chances created as well. Yeah, what a footballer. He can play anywhere in midfield. Looking at the front three, what a front three that is. Firmino, he across the 2 games, across Bournemouth and Newcastle, he's got 3 goals and 3 assists, I think, which is just a burst of life out of nowhere. So that's nice to see, and I think he looks back to his sharp self. And yeah, I think Jota and Núñez ultimately will replace him in the team. But it's nice to see that we have a firing Firmino, and then the left striker. Do I even need to mention him?
No, we've said enough.
Yeah, I think we are said enough. Double hat trick back to back. Yeah, and Sterling. I know they lost, but I think taking into account that he pretty much carried Chelsea to the win v Leicester with his brace, and he was the only one that could hold his head high v Southampton with the goal. So it's nice to see he's opened his account for Chelsea.
Wow. And you seem to be a big fan of Marco Silva.
I actually am. I think even ever since his Hull days, you could tell that he was a talented manager. The squad he had at Hull and some of the performances he managed to get out of them. And then obviously it never worked out at Everton, but no manager succeeds at Everton. So
don't be biased, man. Come on.
will you disagree with me?
Carlo Ancelotti is a good manager at Everton. But anyhow,
he ended up leaving.
Still did succeed.
Exactly. So I think it's Marco Silva's about the start that Fulham had in general. I think really good compared to normally a yo-yo team, but they seem really settled. And yeah, I think he's managed to get the best out of Mitrovic as well.
Yeah, and that's key. I think that's absolutely key to Fulham being the difference between Forest and Bournemouth in the league so far. And I'll leave you with this one comment on the back of your team of the week, because it looks as though people do feel that, their clock time is suddenly becoming a thing, Imran. Even if you don't want to admit it. Hey?
Not too sure about that.
Well, look, we look at the first 6 games of the season, and we normally rotate between us depending on which team is leading. But I've been starting this conversation every week for the last 5 weeks. And I said very confidently at the start of the season, looking at these first 6 games, I have absolutely no problem with trying to return 18 points, and I am delighted with Arsenal. And I'll tell you why. I think people underestimate how much beating the likes of Fulham and Aston Villa and Leicester. It isn't the Man United and Man Cities and Liverpools that I really worry about with Arsenal. It's the mid-table teams or the teams in the bottom half of the table. When Arsenal come up against them, they can often find it increasingly difficult. I love that we came from behind in our last game to win against Fulham. And of course, when Villa scored an equaliser in our game recently, we still went and pressed ahead and won the game again. So there's a difference that I see in Arsenal this season with the teams that I think have caused us problems over the course of previous seasons. And of course, Sunday, some people will say, well, this is the big test. Sunday is no test. We're going to Old Trafford and we're going to win. It's as simple as that. 5 games so far, 15 points. We've conceded less goals than Liverpool. I'm good.
I've got a question for you, Mark.
Yeah, man.
Were you concerned about Arsenal's lack of bringing in a midfielder?
No, not really.
No? Because I think Partey's injured and Al Neni's injured for quite a while. So
it is a problem. But I thought if we should have gone for anybody, we should have gone for James Maddison. But we were trying to get Yuri Tillemans, which I'm not 100% sure that he is the right player for us. I think Maddison would fit our style a lot better. Yeah. But we haven't got anybody. But I'm quite content with what we have. Sunday will be a big test, given that Odegaard picked up an injury against Villa. Partey seem to have legs like glass, and we'll have to see what happens over the course of the next 6. But I'm confident, man. I think the team is in a different place mentally this season, so I'm good. I'm going to Old Trafford and expecting 3 points. Come Sunday, bring it on is what I would say. Bring it on.
I have to say though, my FPL bias has to ask you. My opinion is Odegaard has been one of, if not your most important player this season. And how much do you think you'll miss him on Sunday?
Well, I think we will, because I think Odegaard is a very underestimated player in what he does on the pitch and the runs that he makes and the creativity that he brings to the game. But I think the likes of Smith Rowe will have to step in. His confidence is taking a bit of a battering, I feel. So I don't know what lineup Arteta will go with on Sunday and who he will bring in to replace Odegaard, but it feels as though it might be a Smith Rowe job on Sunday. But he's a good player, and I think we've got the pace to trouble United even without Odegaard, because Odegaard isn't really a quick player. He's a very intelligent footballer.
True. He's quicker than Smith Rowe. You got that Fabio Vieira guy as well, don't you?
Well, we will get ready to unleash him in a similar way to United going to unleash Casemiro and Anthony on Sunday. But we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. I don't think Klopp is smiling like that anymore, Imran.
Well, as of right now, I think he will be, because we are looking a bit better. I think we've got the news that Thiago's back in training next week, which is huge. Henderson, albeit, is out, so we are a bit short in midfield once again for the derby tomorrow. But I think the fact that Jota and Nunes are back as well is a big positive, and the fact that we managed to get that win against Newcastle, however you want to say it, it's a win.
Man, you got handed that by the referee, man.
No chance. And I think he'll be a lot happier if we get that win against Everton at Goodison Park. And it is one that I'm nervous for, because it's a Saturday 12:30.
You know what? I've got to tip Everton to do a job on Liverpool on Saturday.
I hate Saturday 12:30 kickoffs. I despise them, and I can honestly see us going 1-0 down in this game, which scares me quite a lot. I think Everton have actually made some good signings, albeit I don't rate Lampard as a manager. But the signings have been pretty good, so they do have some quality. They've re-signed.
Young Gordon will cause you the trouble, I think, on Saturday. You know.
Yeah, maybe, I think. But yeah, the fact that it's an early kickoff and we're a bit short in midfield, we'll probably have to start James Milner and things like that. It's just, it doesn't fill me with confidence, but a derby game is a derby game. It should be exciting and fun.
Well, you've got a question there. Look, what do you make of Klopp's body language in the last match?
I mean, having watched Klopp for the last 6 years, he's not the best loser, is he? And when we were drawing 1-1 or when we were losing 1-0, he was obviously very annoyed, and I don't blame him. He's a very emotional manager, which I like. I admire about him. So I don't think there's much to read into it. And then obviously he was elated once we managed to get the win. Yeah,
he was handed the win. You mean handed the win?
If they waste time in injury time, it deserves to be added on. That's all I'm going to say.
So what you're going to call for the Merseyside derby? I'm confident that Arsenal will go to Old Trafford and turn them over and get 3 points.
I'm still going to back us for a win
tomorrow, 12:30.
We'll go 1-0 down, but then we'll turn it around in the second half, 3-1.
Wow. Okay.
That's the thing with Liverpool. The one thing I associate Liverpool with these days, they have so many 12:30 kickoffs that I just expect them to go down in them. Like every single time.
We always asleep in them.
Yeah, it's a common thing. Though in all fairness, well, you have had the midweek game as well, and you did have to push for it. So we will see.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say 6 against is making me feel quite good, because if Liverpool conceding more goals than Arsenal, that's great stuff, man. Keep it going.
It won't last. Don't worry.
Keep it going. Well, look, Kyle. Liverpool might have 4, but you've got -2.
Yeah, it's not fun. Like I remember saying in the opening show that I was expecting to drop points in maximum 2 of these games, one of which was West Ham. So it's not great that we've dropped points to more than half of the games we've played already, and I don't want to, blame that Spurs game, but we really haven't looked the same since we played Spurs. Like, I don't know what it is. We played absolutely fantastically against Spurs. I remember coming pre-Leeds saying that the Spurs game was one of the best performances I've seen Chelsea play in a long, long time. And since then, we've just looked deflated. Honestly, it's been. And I was having this debate with Chris earlier, because we are constantly talking about Kai Havertz, and I was saying that I didn't catch much of the Leicester game, but I watched the Leeds and I watched the Southampton game. And in both of those games, even in the Spurs game as well, there was a moment in the game where Sterling put a ball into the box for Kai Havertz to finish, and he put it over the bar wide. Yeah. It's happened in every game this season. And I don't know how much more.
He's missed a lot of goals this season.
I don't know how much more I can watch. Like, seriously, I'm very glad with that Aubameyang signing, because we have finally got a recognised striker. And in my opinion on it is that the player itself, fantastic player. I think even with an Arsenal standpoint, most Arsenal fans didn't really have a problem with the player. It was more the attitude of the person that they had a problem with. And I guess
apparently that's why you signed.
We'll see. We'll see. Like, I mean, a tweet that has been circulating around Twitter today is that Adebayor celebration of him sprinting down the field. They're waiting for Aubameyang to do the same at the Emirates.
I mean, I think he does have a bit more respect than that. I think.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure he has Arsenal.
I can see the knee slide right in front of Arteta. Something of that look, I think, is coming, but we'll wait and see.
We'll see. Yeah.
Are you worried though? Are you worried about the Chelsea troubles? Because we look at Chelsea and they just look a little bit out of sorts.
We have the Champions League starting next week as well, so the games are going to start piling up, and we will see. Like, I don't know how much time we're going to give, because you know what Chelsea are like. You know what Chelsea are like. They like to get rid of the managers really quickly.
Somebody thinks you need a new manager. Wow!
Oh wow!
Wow! Already?
Wow. I mean, what I would say is it is a bit concerning how instead of addressing the glaring attacking issues, he went for another 90 mil centre back, albeit it was rejected, but. He needs to really focus on that and getting that attack moving, because it really is lame up front right now.
One thing that I was really mad about, and a lot of other Chelsea fans were mad about, was he sold Gilmour on the last day to 10 million. And like, one worry we had after the Leicester game was that after the Spurs game, Kante was injured, and then in the Leeds game, Gallagher got sent off. Yeah. And so we were all absolutely terrified of our midfield choices. And granted, Gallagher is now back, but
is that a good thing?
That's my point. Like, like if we ever are in that situation again where we have an injury or a banning for a lengthy amount of games, granted we did get a midfielder on the final day of the transfer window, and I think it was Zakaria, but still, that it wasn't necessarily the selling that felt insulting. It was the fact that he sold him for 10 mil. That felt like a bit of an insult to me and a lot of other Chelsea fans. But I guess it is what it is. It's now done, and there's nothing we can do about it. And we now have to look to the future. This West Ham game, which I'm not too... I say I'm not too worried about it, but I've said that about Leeds. I've said that about Leicester. I've said that about Southampton. So I don't even know what to think anymore when it comes to this Chelsea side. Like, we've got the quality, but we're just not clinical. Like, it's the same point I made earlier about City. Like, granted, like, City have the quality in that if you constantly push everybody to Haaland, they'll have the quality to finish. But we don't even have the quality in Haaland up front, so we have no choice, and everybody just seems to see that. And so,
well, I think the Chelsea troubles are likely to carry on, if I'm honest, because I don't think Aubameyang are going to paper over what's going on at Chelsea, but we'll see.
The interesting question, Chris did ask me this earlier, is now that Aubameyang has come in, who gets dropped?
It's got to be Havertz.
Of course, that's my question. Havertz goes out.
Yeah.
Well, that was the thing, because like
he's not going to drop Sterling.
The debate isn't between Havertz and Sterling; it's between Havertz and Mount.
He's not going to drop Mount either.
Well, you could because you could just put Havertz. Yeah, go on, Imran.
I get your point, but the way Havertz is a nothing player right now. Like, even if you put Sterling and Aubameyang next to him, he's not his, like, I don't know what he is, honestly. It's been 3 years and I still don't know what his best position is or what his best role is.
I agree.
At least we know Mount has it in his locker to be really creative, and I think Mount will actually come back out once he has runners in Sterling and Aubameyang there now. I think Mount will flourish again.
I have to say, I would drop Havertz instead of Mount.
Yeah.
But there is still that debate in the Chelsea camp.
Well, if Tuchel drops Mount, then I would be very, very surprised.
Phone Tuchel and tell him. Look, let's go to this weekend. So we've already talked about the Merseyside derby coming. Chelsea's got another derby this weekend, Kyle. You're up against West Ham, who are looking pretty solid, and that's going to be a hard one. Yeah, it's going to be a very difficult game, I think. Forest Bournemouth could be tasty. Two newly promoted sides.
Yeah,
and Spurs at home to Fulham. There are quite a lot of London teams in the Premier League this season, actually.
7, I think. Was it 6?
To be fair, I would actually back Fulham to hold Spurs to a draw or something like that. In the way both teams are playing.
What are the odds of Son going and getting a couple of goals this weekend?
Well,
after we've talked about him in the show, won't put it past him. But we've picked out, as I said earlier, the United game against Arsenal, not just because of the history around the fixture, but I think this is a really important game for both of these managers. United have gone 2 in a row. You're getting a lot of noises about Ten Hag is turning it around. He's starting to put his stamp on the team, as Jessica was saying earlier. I'm not so sure. I just don't think they're good enough. I think they spent a lot of money and the sides still look terrible. They look awful last night. They're too slow. They're too ponderous. And I think Arsenal will overrun them on Sunday. So that, I think, is going to be a top fixture this weekend. And I'm looking for an Arsenal win at Old Trafford.
I mean, it'll be the first real test because the only thing you can put against Arsenal so far is they haven't faced a top opposition.
United are not any top opposition.
Again,
they're just top in name only.
A game at Old Trafford where they've won 3 on the bounce, I think, will be a test for them, for the young squad. And I think, especially the midfield, I think Sambi Lokonga will play. It'll be a very, very big game for him. And
it will be.
I think,
it will be.
Yeah, it's the first time to see they are a Big Six team, and it is at Old Trafford, so it will be a chance to see if they can rise to the occasion.
I think the likes of Williams, Saliba, and even our goalkeeper, who does cause me a little bit of concern from time to time, because I think his playing up from the back is often fraught with a lot of error-strewn passes. So I will see how that one goes, particularly in the back line at Old Trafford. But I think we have what it takes to go there and win this weekend. So
I have to say that is a debate that we probably will be having quite a lot in the coming months, because Nick Pope, in terms of that position for England goalkeeper, is having quite a decent season right now.
Yeah,
he is.
So we will see how Ramsdale, combats that, and even Pickford at Everton. But I think he's at a slight disadvantage.
I look at this here. You see, I didn't have to say it, and I didn't ask this person to say it either. But I think United are just going along on name now and spending a lot of money and hoping for the best. But
I have to say, I think it's because United have won their last 2 games that this game now has become very, very big.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I'd agree that United aren't the best quality in the league at all, by no means. Because
and you went there and gave them 3 points, and that didn't help anybody.
Even Liverpool team that have been up there for the last few seasons got a bit shell-shocked at Old Trafford, so it can happen.
It can. And I think Arteta will be making sure that Arsenal are well primed and ready for that, because it's a very intimidating place to go, as we know. You know, so we'll see. So that's this weekend, and we are absolutely looking forward to how those games play out. So we like to finish with the table. I don't have to say a lot.
I mean, to be fair, I can't believe we're in 6th. It feels like we should be in the relegation zone with how bad we've been.
Yeah, I think
looking at the relegation zone after yesterday's games is quite interesting, because I think all 3 of the teams in the relegation zone at the moment will be fighting for it by game week 34, 35. Because even though Wolves aren't they're the only team there on 3 points that have drawn all 3 games, but they don't look amazingly threatening.
I see Wolves getting out of that situation. I think they'll be back into mid-table.
You think?
I think so as well. I worry for Leicester, because I just feel that Brendan he sounds beaten to me. Sounds beaten to me, and it's only 5 games in, and he sounds beaten. And he's very disappointed that the squad hasn't been refreshed and he hasn't got anybody in, and all that is translated into the team, I feel. And I don't think, from what I saw last night, they're beaten side, man. They're gone. Yeah. So it will take a lot for them to come back this season.
Yeah. I can't even think of who they could appoint. Sean Dyche, maybe?
No.
Well, it will be interesting, because Leicester and Villa are playing each other next Saturday. So it'll be very, very interesting to see who does what. I have to ask, because Imran, you are the person who put Villa to finish 12th at the beginning of the season. So, do you think that Villa have been quite plagued by injury, and as a result, Steven Gerrard's a bit unlucky, or do you think it's his own fault?
I think it's firmly on Gerrard. I do not rate what he is. I mean, I never fully backed him. I was always interested to see what he could do, and I had hoped that he would be a good manager, because then in the future he could be Liverpool manager. But what he's shown me this transfer window and so far this season, nah. I just
man, it's early days, man. You can't be that harsh on Steven Gerrard. Come on.
Can be. He was 2-0 up in the 75th minute, and we would have won the league at the end of last season.
Yeah, don't be bitter about Gerrard, man. I think he'll be all right, and he will be a future Liverpool manager. Top of the pile is Arsenal. We can see we haven't spoken about Brighton, but Graham Potter is continuing to do a tremendous job with Brighton, playing some excellent football. Really like the guy. Really like what he's doing. Chelsea mid-table, and Liverpool are back in there in the top 6. They only managed to scrape a win called the Rob Newcastle the other night. But anyway, we will see how that goes. Listen, I see there have been quite a few of you making some comments on the chat tonight, and we really appreciate this. This is the football show with me, Mark, Kyle, and Imran on We Global. And we love to talk football. We love to talk about our fantasy league, and we look forward to you joining us on the next one when we talk more about football. Thank you so much, and thank you for joining us. Over and